Let's go.
Angel, why are men so obsessed with this conversation?
First of all, congratulations. You was dominating against women in the 8th grade. What does he want? Does he want a cookie? You want a medal for that? Like, the only thing that should be coming out of a man's mouth about women is uplifting her. I think the main thing we should be talking about, a woman, guess what? When I gotta come and drop 40 and I'm on my fucking period and I'm bleeding and my stomach hurts and my back hurts, when y'all load manage.
Watch that body language. Watch the hand gestures. Watch the escalation. That's not a measured response to a basketball conversation. That's pure emotional reaction. And what triggered this meltdown? 2 NBA players having a casual podcast conversation about whether 8th and 9th grade versions of themselves could beat WNBA players. That's it. That's what caused this level of outrage. Michael Porter Jr. and LaMelo Ball weren't on ESPN making official statements. They weren't at a press conference attacking women's basketball. They were on their own podcast, having the kind of hypothetical sports debate that happens in barbershops and living rooms every single day. And somehow that became unacceptable.
First of all, congratulations. You was dominating against women in the 8th grade. What does he want? Does he want a cookie? You want a medal for that? Like, the only thing that should be coming out of a man's mouth about women is uplifting her. I think the main thing we should be talking about, a woman, guess what? When I gotta come and drop 40 and I'm on my fucking period and I'm bleeding and my stomach hurts and my back hurts, when y'all load manage off a headache, let's talk about how awesome that is. Let's
be clear about what Michael Porter Jr. actually said. He didn't claim WNBA players are bad at basketball. He didn't say they don't work hard. He didn't diminish their accomplishments within their own league. He made a biological observation about physical differences between male and female athletes at elite levels. That's it. Porter Jr. is currently averaging 25 points per game in the NBA this season. When he was in 8th grade, he was already 6'7" and dominating high school competition. The physical reality is undeniable, but according to Angel Reese, nobody is supposed to talk about this. Nobody is supposed to acknowledge what everyone already knows. Why? Because it hurts feeling.
Coming out of a man's mouth about women is uplifting her. I think the main thing we should be talking about, a woman, guess what? When I gotta come and drop 40 and I'm on my fucking period and I'm bleeding and my stomach hurts and my back hurts, when y'all load manage off a headache, let's talk about how awesome that is. Let's talk about how awesome it is that women, we have these babies and we come back and still dominate sports. That stuff is not, yeah, you can dunk. A lot of us can't do that.
When she was playing, how many games were they playing in the WNBA? Like 32 a year? 32 a year? Something like that? Now they play, what, 44?
Here's where this gets revealing. Notice what Angel Reese demands from male athletes. She says the only thing that should come out of a man's mouth about women's basketball is praise, not honest analysis, not real conversation, just constant affirmation and cheerleading. That's not respect. That's demanding special treatment. And then she brings up playing on her period, dealing with pregnancy, managing families alongside careers, all legitimate challenges. But here's the problem with that argument. Those are choices. If juggling motherhood and professional basketball is too difficult, then don't do both simultaneously. Nobody forces WNBA players to have children during their playing careers. NBA players make sacrifices too. They miss births, anniversaries, their kids' first steps. That's the cost of professional athletics at the highest level.
When she was playing, how many games were they playing in the WNBA? Like 32 a year? 32 a year? Something like that? Now they play, what, 44? Let's see, in the NBA, they play 81 and have played 81 forever. She's not wrong about load management, by the way. That's some bullshit, too. But the idea, the only thing that should come out of a man's mouth, nah, miss me with that bullshit.
But the awesome things we can do, let's highlight that.
The load management argument is particularly weak. Yes, NBA players have gotten criticized for load management, and rightfully so. But the WNBA plays 40 games per season. The NBA plays 82. That's literally double. WNBA players are asking for sympathy about managing a schedule that's half as demanding as what male players handle. And they wonder why people don't take these complaints seriously. Remember when the U.S. women's national soccer team lost to FC Dallas under-15 boys team? That happened to the best female soccer players in the world, including Megan Rapinoe, got beaten 5-2 by 13 and 14-year-old boys. Not grown men, not college players, middle schoolers. That's not an insult. That's biology. And pretending otherwise doesn't change reality.
About the WNBA, that's what they don't get. Nobody's attacking anybody. They had a conversation and they stated the obvious. They weren't launching into the fact that these WNBA players aren't good, aren't capable of playing good basketball in their own league. Yeah, a lot of them are. Some of them are not. I'm not going to even act like some of them are terrible at basketball. By the way, I mean, Michael Porter Jr., he's averaging basically 20.
But then something interesting happened. Sophie Cunningham, an actual WNBA player, responded to the controversy, and her take was completely different from Angel Reese's emotional outburst. Cunningham told Clutch Points, "I mean, it's probably true. I don't want to be unrealistic or delusional. Men are just stronger, bigger, and more athletic. They are a different build, and if you put them against females, yeah, they're gonna win. That's it. That's the entire reasonable response. No outrage, no demands for censorship, no claims of disrespect, just an honest acknowledgement of physical reality." And you know what happened? Sophie Cunningham became even more popular with fans. Because people respect honesty. They respect athletes who don't need constant validation and protection from obvious truths.
I give Sophie Cunningham may be the realest basketball player in the WNBA. Because she gave a full comment about this. And she's not delusional at all. Quote, "I mean, it's probably true," Cunningham said, per Clutch Sports. "I don't want to be like unrealistic or delusional. Like men are just stronger, bigger, and athletic. Like they are a different..."
Cunningham continued, "If you're a professional football player, basketball player, really any sport, but let's just take basketball, because that's where we're both at. If you're in that elite group, yeah, you should be able to beat girls." Notice the confidence in that statement. She's not threatened by the comparison. She's not demanding that men pretend other ones to protect her ego. She's comfortable with who she is and what she's accomplished. This is the fundamental difference between likable WNBA players and ones who constantly alienate fans. Sophie Cunningham gets it. She understands that respect isn't earned through demands and outrage. It's earned through performance, professionalism, and not requiring everyone to walk on eggshells around you. That's why she has such a strong fan base. That's why people actually want to watch her play.
Build. And if you put them against females, well, yeah, they're going to win. Duh. If you are a professional football player, basketball player, really any sport, but let's just take it basketball because where we're both at, like to me, if you're in that elite group, yeah, you should be able to beat girls. I mean, Sophie's got it completely figured. I mean, again, he wasn't. Why?
The WNBA has a massive likability problem, and moments like Angel Reese's rant perfectly illustrate why. Fans don't want to support athletes who position themselves as perpetual victims. They don't want to be lectured about what they're allowed to discuss. They don't want to be told that honest observations about biology are somehow attacks that need to be censored. Compare the response to Sophie Cunningham versus Angel Reese. One player acknowledged reality with confidence and grace. The other demanded censorship and special treatment. One player's popularity increased. The other became a meme for insecurity and overreaction. That's not a coincidence. That's cause and effect. Here's what this controversy really reveals about the state of women's basketball and sports media in 2024. We've reached a point where stating obvious biological facts is considered controversial, where having a private conversation on your own podcast can trigger demands for apologies, and re-education, where professional athletes expect to be shielded from any comparison that doesn't flatter them. Michael Porter Jr. and LaMelo Ball didn't set out to create controversy. They weren't trying to diminish anyone. They were having the exact same conversation millions of sports fans have had throughout history. The hypothetical "could this team beat that team" debate is fundamental to sports culture. It's why people argue about whether the 1996 Bulls could beat the 2017 Warriors. It's why people debate whether college football champions could compete with the worst NFL teams. These conversations aren't attacks. They're thought experiment. But when that thought experiment involves comparing male and female athletes, suddenly it becomes forbidden territory. Why? Because the answer is uncomfortable for people who've invested their identity in denying biological reality. Angel Reese's reaction wasn't about defending WNBA players from disrespect. It was about protecting an ideology that requires everyone to pretend physical differences don't exist. Think about what she actually demanded. She said the only acceptable thing for men to say about women's basketball is praise, not analysis, not comparison, not honest assessment, just cheerleading. That's not equality, that's special treatment. And it's exactly the kind of attitude that pushes casual fans away from the WNBA. The league has spent years complaining about lack of media coverage, low attendance and wage gaps with the NBA. But then when someone like Sophie Cunningham demonstrates the kind of authentic, confident personality that actually attracts fans, she gets drowned out by players like Angel Reese, who'd rather play the victim than build genuine connections with audience. Consider the practical implications of Angel Reese's position. If we're not allowed to acknowledge that elite male athletes would dominate against female athletes, what else are we required to pretend? Are we supposed to act like the physical differences that make separate leagues necessary somehow disappear when it's convenient? Are we supposed to ignore the documented cases of biological males competing in women's sports and dominating due to those exact physical advantages everyone's supposed to pretend don't exist? The cognitive dissonance is stunning. The same people who insist we can't compare male and female athletes will simultaneously argue that transgender women should compete in women's sports because there's no meaningful physical difference. You can't have it both ways. Either biology matters or it doesn't. Sophie Cunningham understands something that Angel Reese apparently doesn't. Confidence doesn't require delusion. You can acknowledge that male athletes have physical advantages while still taking pride in your own accomplishments within your competitive category. Female athletes don't need to beat men to be impressive. They need to excel against their actual competition, and the best of them do exactly that without requiring constant validation. The comparison to Kobe Bryant that Angel Reese made is particularly telling. She claimed Kobe never said things like this, only uplifted women's basketball. But that's selective memory. Kobe praised WNBA players for their skill within their league. He never pretended they could compete physically with NBA players. He respected them enough to be honest, not patronizing. Real support means treating people like adults who can handle reality. It means praising genuine accomplishments without requiring everyone to pretend those accomplishments are something they're not. When you demand that people lie to protect your feelings, you're not asking for you're asking for pity. And pity is the opposite of respect. The WNBA's attendance and viewership problems won't be solved by policing conversations and demanding censorship. They'll be solved by developing more players like Sophie Cunningham, who are confident enough in themselves to not require constant affirmation. Players who can engage with fans honestly, instead of positioning themselves as victims of every honest observation. Sports fans respect authenticity. They respect confidence. They respect athletes who don't need their hands held and their egos protected. That's why Sophie Cunningham's response resonated while Angel Reese's rant became a punchline. One demonstrated strength. The other demonstrated insecurity masquerading as activism. So here's the question the WNBA needs to answer. Do you want to build a league around athletes who can handle reality and connect with fans authentically? Or do you want to build it around activists who require constant protection from uncomfortable truths? Because you can't do both. And right now the loudest voices are pushing away the exact fans the league claims it wants to attract. Michael Porter Jr. doesn't owe anyone an apology. He stated an obvious fact on his own platform. If that's too much for some WNBA players to handle, that says everything about their fragility and nothing about his respect for women's basketball. The real question is whether the league will continue letting its most insecure voices dominate the conversation, or whether players like Sophie Cunningham will finally get the platform they deserve. Because one approach builds fan bases, the other destroys, and the WNBA needs to figure out which path it wants to take before it's too late.